All right, welcome back to another episode of Talk to Tatiana. And we're continuing with the series of failing in business, which there's nothing wrong with. And so, DeAnna, I want to welcome you to the show, and I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk a
Awesome.
little bit more about my journey and everything. So let's have it.
Awesome. Terrific. So, DeAnna, talk a little bit about who you are and what you do now.
Well, I am a business owner with my husband. We've been in business together for um, a little over 6 years now, almost 6.5 years together. Which some people are like, "You work with your husband?" I'm like, "Well, I like him. He likes me. It works out fine." Um, we have grown our business quite a bit, especially during the last few years, which is crazy to say, but we look back and we reflect on how things have been going for us. And honestly, I think the sky's the limit, um, based off what we've seen. Right now, what I do in our business, which is a public relations agency here in Chicago, I mostly work on like the business development. So I like doing sales. I enjoy developing ideas and tools and initiatives for our team, for the company itself, trying different things every now and then, and really just being kind of a connector for different projects and people in the industry.
Awesome. I love it. And so, just a quick, um, I guess, clarification for me, because the sound has been breaking up. Hopefully, it's
Oh, no.
recording properly. But you do public relations, but the business itself does also public relations,
Yes.
or no?
Well, I guess I should clarify with you,
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much.
myself. I'm not a PR person. So I always make sure that that is clear to people. I'm not the one doing the accounts. I typically say that I'm kind of behind the scenes, like, just doing more operational, developmental things for the business itself. Developing our brand over the last about year and a half that I've been full time with the business. I think we've established a pretty decent reputation in Chicago, so pretty happy about that.
Terrific. And so, tell me a little bit about kind of where you started and your career, whether it's entrepreneurial career or a career, another career maybe, where you've started. And I'm doing a series on business kind of failures, and I think that they're important because what I don't want people to continue to think that having your own business is all white and fluffy and it's all perfect and it's all super cool and etc. And so
Wonderful.
I that's why I'm doing this series of interviews where I talk to people about how they failed in business and kind of what we can learn from that, because I think it's the best opportunities to learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't make those mistakes yourself. And so give us everything. Share
Everything?
what you can.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say that I really appreciate that you are doing a series like this because it is so important, especially for women sometimes to even understand that, we see these success stories and we see all these people in their shiny outfits and jet setting across the world. And it can really look like, oh man, that's not me. Um, so my work history, I started actually in financial aid at a university here in Chicago. I will still say it was my best and worst job ever. Best meaning the perks were great. The pay was great. All of the good things that you want from a job. I could walk to work. It was awesome. It was also the most stressful job I've ever had. Like to this day, even as a business owner, that was the most stressful job that I ever had. From there, I kind of had a few other sales jobs here and there in between, just kind of finding my way until one day my husband and I both came to the realization that neither of us wanted a job anymore. And so We quit our jobs on the same day back in 2016. Two small children at home. Really stupid thing to do. But we did it, and we were like, now we have to make it work. So at that time, we actually started two different businesses. And the one of them was a major failure. And I do want to get to that because um, it was a tough couple of years dealing with what happened. Um, but now that I'm older and wiser, I realize that, sometimes our failures are actually like our origin story. And I think if you take that perspective, it makes it all, I don't want to say make it all better, but it can help deal with what happened. So what happened? We bought a franchise. Uh, you know, we were we were young. We thought this will be a great money making machine. This will be easy. We don't have to put a lot of work into it. Not true at all. Um, Anyone who's ever bought and owned and operated a franchise knows that those things are not true. Um, Unfortunately, there were more layers to what happened. We did not do enough research on what we were purchasing. We did not do enough market research to understand the market that we were trying to tap into. Um, and ultimately, we were not in a financial position to take on what we did. And so within 11 months, which is like, I'm okay saying it now, but at the time I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. It felt embarrassing. It felt, shameful. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. But within 11 months, the business completely tanked. Um, we were losing money every single month. Um, so it was not fun. On the flip side, though, we also started Bear Icebox, which is the current business that we run together, around the same time. Uh, at the moment, that business was meant to be like a freelance secondary income. Little did we know that would eventually become the business that it is today. So yeah, that bit of failure with that first business, it stung for a few years. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there were days that I thought, oh my gosh, I would never want this for anybody. And but looking at it now as like an origin story, I think because of those failures, we look at our current business so differently now.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, franchise, I mean, you would think, and I'm an accountant by trade and by education,
Mhm.
really. And so you would like, I would think that it's hard to fail a franchise business, but I don't think it is because it's a business just like anything else. You get a better start, meaning that you don't need to do as much work in the beginning, but I think that it's still a business. And so, thank you. It was an interesting insight for me to realize that a franchise business could be, I don't want to say fail, but could be that challenging.
Mhm.
And especially, I know I have a friend who's like a franchise coach. She teaches you about the basics of the franchise, and she works primarily with military or retiring military and what do you call it? Like
Right?
those who are already retired and needed like a stream of
Okay.
income. And the reason is that, you know, franchises can be great for people who are used to discipline and following orders. Could be great and are
Mhm.
good operational people, and that's why ex-military make really great COOs and other stuff. But it's not an easy business, and so I'm curious to know kind of what were your lessons that you've learned from that experience, and what, if anything, you could do differently if you got a chance to go back and redo it.
Yeah. The two main things is one, make sure that your money is in order before you do it. We were in a position where we it wasn't that expensive to actually start this franchise, which is what was appealing initially. However, the overhead costs started to pile up as we started getting our first couple of clients. So definitely make sure that you have your money in order. You don't want to go into a situation like that, um, and you're pulling from your own savings, and you're pulling from your own, you know, bank account to support this other business that should be supporting you. Um, and then the second biggest lesson that we learned was researching. Research what you're doing. So just to give you a little bit more information, it was a home care franchise. So helping assisted living, and people who needed help with their daily activities, which is something that I genuinely care about. Um, I think that community sometimes falls by the wayside, and we all just keep moving on with our own lives. So it was a business that we felt strongly about, helping the elderly. Um, the research part comes in. We live in Illinois, and I'm not going to get into politics at all on your show, but the state of Illinois, they don't have their money right. That's all I'll say about that. So we didn't have our money right. The state didn't have their money right.
Same as New York.
Same in New York. Um, some of these states, it's, they need a little help. And so we did not research enough to understand that the state of Illinois was not capable of supporting us and our clients, in certain areas. So we would have been waiting at least 18 to 24 months to receive reimbursements for services. And 2 years is too long to wait to get paid. And so we didn't find that out until, get this, the day that we received our license to work. And so my jaw was just like yours. My jaw hit the floor. And I was like, oh no, we spent all this money. It took 7 months to even
Wow.
get the license. So within 7 months, we could have been building Bear Icebox. But no, we were like, no, this is going to be the thing. And so the day we got the license was January 18th of 2017. um, is when we found out that we actually were not going to get paid for any of the work that we were trying to do. So those are the two big things. Get your
Wow.
money in order before you make any sort of investment. Make sure that you can actually have the investment and continue to support your life. And then also make sure that you are
Wow.
strongly researching anything that you're getting yourself into.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Very powerful lessons for sure. Thank you for sharing them. And let me ask you this: how did you exit out of this business? Meaning, how did you make a decision to close it? Um, did you wait until you run out of money? Like, people do it
Mhm.
differently. And of course, there's this phenomenon, I guess, because the singular, that how to invest in stock market. You buy low and sell high, but the problem is you never know when that low and that high is. And so with businesses, I think it's also a little bit of an issue, where, like, I tell business owners, if we know, I mean, I know, because when I look at it, I can tell when a business can
Mhm.
close. Numbers don't lie. But um, if you see negative trends, like, you should keep your hand on the pulse all the time. And if you see negative trends, cut your losses and shut down if that's the right decision.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy to know when that low is, and so, or that high debt, or whatever, wherever that point is where you should be closing. Looking back, it's easy to say, oh, I should have closed months earlier. But how did you make that decision? What was that
So
process like?
yeah, no, you're spot on. Identifying, where those bumps in the road might come on, within the third month of us officially launching the business. By by March, I told my husband, I was like, we're going to be out of money by middle of June. And he's like, I think you're right, but let's keep going. And I was like, no, I was like, I'm doing the numbers. We're going to be broke by June. We need to do something. And so
Wow.
we
Wow.
actually, you know, to answer your question, how did we end? Well, as you can imagine, with a franchise, it was a little bit more complicated than we thought. We multiple times mentioned that, hey, we don't have money to keep this thing running. We have to pay people. We have to pay the overhead. Um, we're going to be out of money by June. Um, the franchisor, and if they come across this, I want to say that they're good people. I will say that they're good people. They're doing something really great and really awesome. Unfortunately, we just were not capable to continue that awesomeness. Um, so, they were trying to, try different marketing tactics and this and that. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, this is not going to work. So the only way that we were able to actually get out of the franchise contract was to bankrupt the business, which was the other hard part about having a business that failed. Um, Being a young married couple with a family. Um, Also, remind you, no jobs. We had no no backup plan when we started this business. We had to bankrupt the business and ourselves. It was
Wow.
our own money that we put in, so it was a personal guaranteed situation that we were unfortunately had to go
Wow.
through a bankruptcy in our late 20s, which was again embarrassing. You didn't want to really tell anyone, but we quickly got over that because we were very relieved to not have to, run that business to the ground anymore. So, we tell everybody, we're like, it's,
Wow.
you hear the word bankruptcy, you hear these words that have such a negative connotation to them. But at the end of the day, it was really our saving grace to be able to do that and kind of start with a clean slate. Um, Again, I'm not going to lie and say like it's all fine and dandy. It wasn't. It was not. We definitely had some tough days, some tough nights going through that whole process. But ultimately, we knew that it was the best decision for us and that time.
Awesome. That's a great story, and then there's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, I think the more we can freely talk about failures in business, our own failures in business, and talk about it openly, the less of an elephant in the room money and the related um, things like business, like taxes, like everything else really start to become, the less of an elephant it becomes in the room, because people don't talk about their failures, they don't talk about
Mhm.
money because there's shame related to that. And I think it's not the right approach. I think that we should be able to talk about our failures often, because then somebody else will maybe take precaution and maybe think about things like, in advance. And so I wrote a book. I don't work with startups anymore, with businesses who are just starting out, but I wrote a book because I'm an accountant and I've been in accounting for 17 years, and I wanted to change how people start businesses and help them start them smarter and understand what they're doing before they even start. And so I think it's absolutely critical to talk about failures, and that's why I started the series of interviews. And I'm only doing a few to kind of show a different approach and different lessons learned by people. But I think it's absolutely, you brought up a really good point about what you need to do before you even go there. Like, make sure that you know your numbers, that you run them, and really understand what the ramifications are, and things. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Many people have bankruptcies. Actually, a lot of people have bankruptcies,
Hmm.
and it's, you just only hear about the celebrity ones on TV or in the press, but you don't hear about the regular people filing for bankruptcies, and that happens more often than not. And what's interesting, I found, was that a lot of people who actually make a lot of money secretly sometimes file for bankruptcies, which is
Yeah.
even more interesting, which just tells me that people don't know how to manage
Yeah.
money. Um, so, yeah, thanks so much for sharing. That was awesome. It was an awesome story. So, tell me more about what is your ideal client now? Meaning that if someone listens to this and they're like listening to you explaining that or describing that person, that ideal client, they'll be like, oh, this is me. So talk a little bit more about that.
Wow, that's a broad question. No, no, I think that the ideal client for, needing PR, um, there's so many reasons why someone might need it. In cases of crisis, uh, you need someone to help you navigate tough times, get your wording right. Um, Speaking of wording, sometimes businesses and business owners, I should say, especially if they're doing their own, marketing and they have their own little team that they're working with. Sometimes your, brand message isn't where you want it to be or where you think it is. And we see that a lot. Sometimes clients, they'll come in and they're like, customers don't understand what we do. Um, our internal team, they don't understand what we do. And it really comes all down to messaging and understanding how to communicate and articulate what you need, what you do, what you provide. Um, and at the end of the day, it really comes down to like value. You need to be able to show people the value in what they're getting with either your products or your services. And if you're not doing that, you 100% are not capturing the most of your audience. Primarily, we do work with B2B clients, so not a lot of consumer facing products, but definitely people who want to get in front of the right investors, um, or just the right industries to propel themselves to be experts. Thought leadership is something huge right now that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to do that. PR is a great way, actually, to not just send out a press release, but you know craft and create storylines that your audience will resonate with and will think of you top of mind, like, oh, this person does X, Y, or Z. You just think of it. I don't want to say household names. We're not exactly doing that, but we have seen a lot of our clients grow in areas where they've either been acquired for multi-million dollar deals, um, or they find investors that are just like doing exactly what they've been wanting to do for a few years. It's like now that they have established that, yeah, we are the company that you want to invest in. There you go. And more importantly, I think the ideal person sees themselves as more than just DeAnna Spoerl. Um, we are all bigger than just a name. Um, and I'm gonna butcher this, but
Awesome.
this was years
That's
ago.
that sounds great.
Um, I came across this,
Wow.
like, sort of, it was like an analogy, um, for what does it mean to say the word, and I'm gonna use, let's Amazon. When you think of Amazon, you think of a bunch of different things, depending on who you are, how you use it. There's not just like one thing that you go to. It evokes feelings, emotions, desires,
Yep.
ease. All kinds of words can come with that. And I think with ourselves, we need to look beyond just, I'm a mother, I'm a business owner. We can offer so much more, um, in our messaging of who we are and what we have to offer.
Yep. That's awesome. Thanks so much again for sharing your story, your business, your failure. Thanks for being open about it. And it was um, really eye opening for me, and I hope that for my listeners as well. Um, and so, what's the best way for people who are listening for the audience to connect with you and get in touch with you? Like, where do you live? I mean, I know you live in LinkedIn because you gave me a LinkedIn link, but is there a website or is there anything else that we can provide to the
Sure.
listeners?
LinkedIn is probably the best way to reach me, especially these days. I've been personally trying to limit my social media use, which is not what we do for our clients. It's more of a personal thing for me. But you can also find us at bearicebox.com. My email is deannaleticia at bearicebox.com. You can also find us, Bear Icebox, on all the social media platforms as well. Um, yeah, I do have a
Awesome.
poetry website. I haven't written poetry in a very long time, but it's a website called andthelightsdon'tlie.com if you're interested.
Awesome. Awesome. I will make sure to include all the links below the episode, and also if you're on YouTube below the video. So be sure to check that out.
Awesome.
DeAnna, thanks so much for being a part of this series and being open about your business journeys. I learned a lot, and I hope that my listeners learned a lot as well. And thanks so much for being a great
Awesome.
guest.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this series. It's so important to have this out there.
Absolutely. All right. Those of you who are listening or watching, I'll see you next week for another great episode of Talk to Tatiana.